Well, with the premiere of Season 2, it should become apparent that Narcos is getting better and definitely is not playing around. Hey guys, it's coming out for the season premiere of Narcos, Season 2, Episode 1, free at last. Sorry it took me so long to review this episode. I meant to review it last week. Other things just got in the way. There were so many premieres last week, and there's so many premieres this week. Not as many this week, but it's really going to start next week, and I figured that I might as well review this premiere because people are going to think that I stopped watching Narcos, and that definitely was not the case. I actually was really looking forward to this premiere. Now, look, yes, I didn't love Season 1. I thought Season 1 was a very good season, but I did feel that there were a lot of problems with Season 1. I was hoping that Season 2 would fix some of those, and I have to say that Season 2 already is an improvement over Season 1 for many reasons. This episode in general is just more or less of what I want the show to be. I really enjoyed overall. Not a perfect premiere, I will definitely say that. I do think there are some things that definitely did irritate me a little bit, but let's just get in this episode because I definitely really did enjoy it. There's a lot to talk about. It's pretty much Escobar versus everyone right now, and it's awesome to watch, and the countdown for his death is on, but let's get right into it. So we start off where Murphy is recapping the events of the ending of Season 1, and I have to say that this is the one thing that really is starting to bother me. I mean, the narration in Season 1, I thought it worked. I thought it made sense to introduce it to the characters, get us into the story, things like that. It's really starting to become irritating, in my opinion. I mean, I really do like Boyd Holbrook as an actor. I think I like that they're giving him more to do this season. But the narration, I just feel, isn't really needed anymore. We already know the story. We know the characters. We don't really need this narration. There are a lot of times in this episode where I just feel you could have gotten rid of the narration, and we would have known pretty much everything we needed to. But that's really my only thing with this episode. Well, I'll talk about a little bit more in greater detail, but he reminds about the firing squad sent to condemn Escobar, who at this time was stranded in the middle of nowhere, and it seemed that there was no way he was getting out of this one. It seemed like that they were going to get him no matter what, and we get this fantastic opening scene where two men find his car. They wonder if the special forces killed him, if he can be killed, and that is they hear gunfire in the distance, and the other man asks what he's talking about. The man says they shot him 20 times, they pumped him full of lead, and then they burned his body and spread his ashes all over Medellin, I think is how you pronounce the name. I can't think of how you pronounce the name, but they say that he rose from the ashes and shot, and he went to each of the houses of each of the men who had shot him, and he killed them. They slept, and the other man says that it sounds like bullshit. Then they hear someone coming. They say that they are soldiers from the National Army, tell them to stop and identify themselves. Escobar then goes to the army. They tell him that they've been ordered to not let him through and they have to take him into custody. He's then surrounded by more soldiers, and Escobar says that he's sorry to say that cannot happen, and then they let him through, realizing that essentially they're outnumbered. And I like that even though Escobar is, on the loose and people are still after him, he still is the one holding the most power, and it's very interesting to see in the way that everyone's just feared of him. Wagner Moura just absolutely killed it here. Even when Escobar is very much kind of, breaking, you can definitely see he is still just as powerful, and I definitely really thought that was interesting to see. And the soldier tells him not to say a word to anyone about this, and Escobar is then in his car, and Murphy tells that Escobar was headed home, but him and Connie were in deep shit, and he hadn't even heard the news, and this is one of the things that I do like about the season. That I said in the first season, Connie to me wasn't really a character. She was Murphy's wife, and that really was it. They gave her something to do, and then they got away from it. But it seems like this season already, we're really going more into Murphy and Connie's marriage. What Murphy's job requires, what the impact is for their marriage, and the difficulties that both of them have to deal with. And I thought they actually did that pretty well here. Because Murphy tells Connie that this is what he does, is his job. Connie says to not even say that she knows what his job, but it shouldn't include being kidnapped by a Colombian drug cartel. He says he's sorry, he knows this must be enough for her, but he was never in any danger. He says he's here now, back with her. She says all she wants for them to be safe, and she wants to get the hell out of there and go home, because they were supposed to leave. And he then gets a call, and, you know, at this point, he's telling her, all right, we're gonna go home now, everything's gonna be fine. But then the worst thing could happen. He gets a call from Javier, who tells him what happened with Escobar. Murphy says to pick him up in 10 minutes, and he'll meet him downstairs. He hangs up the phone, tells Connie what happened. Murphy tells us that he was actually happy about it, though. The fox was out of the cage, and the hunt was on. It was the biggest law enforcement of all time, but luckily it wasn't their blunder to deal with. They know that this really wasn't their fault, and that they're not the ones to be blamed here. It was actually, of course, you know, Gaviria's fault. President Gaviria. I really like what they did with him this episode. He is lecturing the soldiers, says this is the biggest embarrassment in all of Colombia. They wonder how to proceed and decided they should try to occupy, you know, Medellin and do what they can to, you know, to get him out of there. And I thought that was definitely interesting to see. And basically, they decide they should try to occupy and close down the streets and establish vehicle checkpoints and pressure him until he appears. And Gaviria asks how they're supposed to get this done. They plan for the Colonel Pinson to be the one to step into play, and he agrees that that must be the best way to do it. Obviously, they need someone to overwatch the whole thing, and Pinson is going to be the one to step up, we see. So he then contacts Duque, who... It's understandable, obviously, why he had to contact him. We know, obviously, the attack that Duque suffered and make sure he's okay. He says he couldn't negotiate with Escobar. He says he understands. Gaviria asks why he went inside, and Duque says that he sensed something was off and says Ariza said that his orders were to secure the perimeter, and that's all. And Gaviria says he lied and he did himself and tells him to go home and get some rest, but come back soon and tells him that he is the only person that he can actually trust right now, which I like that Gaviria really doesn't know who to trust. Even though he is the president and he has this whole embassy and everyone on his side, he doesn't know if they actually are working with Escobar, especially after this whole situation, and he's actually proud that Duque didn't give in to Escobar, which I thought was very interesting to see, and I really did like the way that was done. It makes Gaviria that much better of a character, and I really love it. Already we're doing a lot more with his character than we did last season. Which, stuff like Gaviria, that's one of the major themes this episode, is stuff coming back from Escobar's past to haunt him. You know, people who were, you know, Escobar wronged, they're gonna get their revenge, and we definitely do see that here. So Escobar then returns home to his family. Hermelda is graciously eager to see him. I thought that was a very well done scene, just showing how much she loves Escobar, and we've known, you know, from the beginning that Hermelda's always been on his side. And yes, it's because he's her son, but also because she's always felt that he's doing the right thing and asks if he's alright. He says he's fine. He then goes to see his son, who says he did everything he could. Escobar says he knows. He says he's very proud. He loves him very much. He then goes to Tata and kisses her, sees his new baby while Hermelda goes to greet the rest of Escobar's men. He goes to his men and tells them to monitor the police frequencies and to not bother him until it is absolutely necessary. He then praises them for their hard work, obviously, since they've stuck around, and Escobar and Tata then start to make out. Tata says she thought she lost him. He says she never will. She asks what happens now. He says that he did what he had to do. He'll take care of it, and they'll be fine and content and happy and together and ununited always. And she says to tell her that she'll never lose him. He says never, says he promises. The two then have sex, but you can see by the look on Tata's face that it's not a look of satisfaction or, you know, something where she feels like he's actually telling the truth and something where she feels like she can trust him. It's not a look of content. It's a look of worry. It's a look of skepticism. You can tell that Tata really does not trust her husband right now. She really is starting to realize kind of the stuff he did, and I think she really is starting to realize that she does not agree with the majority of stuff her husband is doing. But she's going to support him nonetheless, and I already think that's very interesting. I've always really liked Tata's character. I like that they're doing more with her, and just that little detail is enough of a reason why I really love this premiere, because I think this premiere, we really are focusing more on the characters, and that's something I think they really had a problem with in Season 1. I like we're doing a lot more of that here. So we then see tons of news reports from all over the world. They are, in fact, real news reports, which is something I've always loved. The show has done. They do show the real footage about Escobar's escape, and Murphy says by morning all eyes were on Medellin, and this wasn't just a manhunt, it was an invasion, and Gaviria was willing to go door to door to catch Escobar. They wanted to be part of it, and they thought of themselves the guys who get shit done. The army then stopped them from going any further. Murphy explains who they are. The soldier says he understands where they're from, but he has to ask Pinson and tells them to wait one moment. Murphy asks if the name has any meaning to him, and Javier says he doesn't know him. Murphy asks if he sees this, and Javier says that it looks like they're not invited to the dance, and the soldier soldier then goes to them, says that they'll let them in once they secure the area. Murphy realizes that there'll be nothing left inside, that everything has already been touched, and that they're really not going to get anywhere here, because they need to do whatever they can to find something of Escobar's, to see if maybe they can find some sort of trace of where he might be, because obviously they want to be the ones to catch him. And Escobar then tells his men that they're going to have to move everything, including the labs, the offices, the hideouts, the deposits, all of it. And I like that Escobar really is starting to think realistically. He knows that, yes, he is a man in power, but he also knows that the FBI is hot on his trail. And with that, he needs to do whatever he can to try to hide this. And his men are them warning him about Catedral and what the cops are doing, and Escobar still says that they need to move everything. He feels the right thing to do, and they agree. Escobar tells them that they're also going to need a lot more men since they lost a ton last night, and he tells them he's going to need a good driver with a clean record to drive him around the city that needs to be smart, fearless, and loyal. And La Cuica actually is the one that agrees to do it, and, Velasco says he can't risk himself like that. They all agree. Escobar says he wants everyone to know that he does not hide like a rat because they are the Medellin cartel, and, basically, he's not gonna let them, he's not gonna go down without a fight. Even though people are after him, he's still gonna continue to fight, and I thought that was very interesting to see. So then we get, I think, this really unnecessary narration from Murphy. I really did not think we need this. He reminds that the Medellin cartel wasn't just one big gang, but was made of a bunch of smaller ones, a collective, and as far as Escobar was concerned, he was still their leader, and in his mind, everyone had to pay tribute to him. Only a guy who'd killed thousands of police who think that Judy Moncada would forget what he did to her husband Kiko and his business partner Fernando Galviano, who were running his business while he was inside, and he thought that they were stealing from him and got the short end of the stick. And of course, we're reminded when he killed Kiko. Remember when he was in that fit of rage in episode 9 when he just beat him over the head with that club? I mean, we remember that scene. And he says Judy was not okay with that. Her brother and alongside her brother Jamie and head of Security Diego Murillo, aka Don Berna, had broken away from the cartel, and now that Escobar was out, they wanted payback. And as for the other gangs, they were all up for grabs. And again, all of this to me, I felt could have been summed up in just a few minutes. I didn't think we needed this whole long monologue of narration that just for me, I didn't really feel need to be there. Because we're then introduced to the Prisco brothers. Murphy tells us that the oldest son, Ricardo, was a respected member of the medical community. We see him take someone's tooth out with a pair of pliers, which that was very hard to watch, but Murphy says he didn't know who to side with, but neither did the Galon gang, who became famous a year later when they murdered Colombian soccer player Andres Escobar for accidentally scoring a goal against his own country for the 1994 World Cup, which I believe there was a 30 for 30 about that, and I've heard that that actually ties in very well with the season. I don't watch a lot of 30 for 30, but maybe I'll check that out just because that story alone sounds very interesting. I wish we could have seen it. I don't really know why. They could have maybe shown some of it, but they didn't. But this was no soccer games, was the blow business, and whose side they chose would come to toe things, who offered the better deal and who had the better chance of winning the war. And finally, now we're done with the whole narration. I just really thought this was very unnecessary. I think very quickly we could have had a conversation between Jamie, Judy, and Berna, and we didn't need this whole narration. I just felt it was very unnecessary. We already know these characters, and I just felt that narration at this point, it just is feeling very tacked on, and I just don't really feel it belongs in the show anymore. That's just me, but to me, it just isn't really working as well. I mean, it worked in the beginning, but this season so far, it's just not really working in the way it used to. So we're then introduced to the character of Jamie, Judy, and Berna, and I have to say I really enjoyed the story overall because this is someone who has been wronged Escobar has wronged them, and they want to get revenge. Jamie tells Judy to stop obsessing over this, tells her to relax. She asks what he wants her to do, to just sit there and wait for Escobar to walk through the door and kill her and her daughter, too. They're coming for his family as well. He says Escobar won't be killing anyone. Berna says if he hasn't killed anyone yet, he's planning on it for sure. Jamie feels that they're in the clear, that they're safe, that he already did what he needed to do, but obviously Jamie's kind of naive about this, and he says that Gaviria's got the city swarm with cops. There's a cop on every fucking street corner, and Escobar can't move, and she says they have to find him and kill him before the police find him. Jamie says he's like a caged rat. Berna says despite everything, he still doesn't know what Escobar is capable of. He's someone that they can't underestimate, and Jamie says that they shouldn't underestimate them either, and that they're just as powerful, which, yeah, they might be, but that doesn't mean that Escobar can't come after them. We already know that if Escobar wants something done, he gets it done, and Escobar's got very few friends left, and he knows that, and Berna says that he will always have allies, which is true. And there's a great scene a little bit later that very much reminds us of that, and Judy says she wants everyone to know what happened to Kiko. It should be clear that being loyal to Escobar will only get you killed, and they'll know what they should be on. And Berna asks what they what they do with the labs, and she asks what he suggests. He says that they should shut down the idea, at least for a while. They have to lay low until Escobar is either captured or killed, and Jamie asks how that makes any sense. A lot of other people have stopped paying Escobar at the same time as them, and they should join forces, he feels. That maybe they should just team up, and he says he met with Ricardo last night. He'll talk to him. Berna says to be very careful with those people, because he just can't really trust the Prisco brothers. So like I said, to me, I think we didn't need that whole monologue of what Ricardo was going through. They could have said it very quickly in that scene, and I just feel that monologue, you know, the whole narration we got was very unnecessary. So Ricardo gets a call from Escobar, tells him that there was no decision to make, says he can always count on them. Laquica then meets with his brother Lamon, and several women seduce him, who I don't know if this was actually his brother. He kept saying, oh brother, but I also know that when you're in a gang, you say, oh brother, you address someone like that, so I don't actually think Lamon was his brother. I just think I thought that, but Lamon said that's why he's here. Laquica says he came to see him, and from what he can see, he's still driving whores everywhere. Lamon says that he knows he has to pay rent, and Laquica asks if he wants to make good money. Lamon asks doing what, and Laquica says driving Escobar. Lamon thinks he's joking, but Laquica says the boss asked them to find someone clean who the police don't know, and he would go in the trunk. And Lamon asks where he'd take him. Laquica says wherever he wants to go, and he is not to ask, and Laquica asks if he's into the idea. Lamon says they should put one of the girls in the trunk so the police aren't suspicious. So you can tell Lamon obviously has an idea, and who better to do that than Maritza, who of course we know that Lamon did have a past with. He tries to get her to be that woman, and she immediately obviously says no. I mean, this is kind of a suicide mission. Her being in the trunk with Escobar is just really not safe, and he says it'll be the easiest money she'll make in her life. She can quit her second job, will be able to take care of her daughter, and he says he's always done right by her and helped her out and her family, and she agrees to it. He brings her back to Lamon, and a woman who Cuica lets her know as she gets in, Rosa. Cuica is trustworthy, and he introduces Lamon to her, and she gets into the cab, as does Rosa. The whore makes rude comments to her, and Cuica tells her to shut up, and he'll fuck her later. So Murphy then tells us again, very unnecessary, about the Antiquinian countryside, which contains 60,000 square feet of creature living space, perfect for entertaining. Tells us to look no further than La Catedral, and says one man's prison is another man's palace, which Murphy and Javier are investigating. He says when the Colombian cops were done with it, they were gracious enough to let them pick through what was left over. We already knew this, though. Why are we have this narration? It just, again, didn't need to be here, didn't really do anything to the plot whatsoever, and it's stuff we already know. Why are you just recapping to me what I already know? That's just annoying. I don't need you to do that, and it just felt annoying that they did, and it just really, like I said, that really took me out of it at points. I just didn't really feel we needed it. So Javier finds Escobar's book, compares it to Mein Kampf, and Murphy says he's thinking about moving in. He finds porno magazines, radio equipment. Really, they're not getting anywhere, but I did like that they are having fun with what they find, which I thought was fun to watch. But Escobar then talks to his daughter, gives her this rabbit, and we're reminded really how kind of a soul Escobar does have and how deep down he feels he's doing everything with good intentions. And that's something I think this episode covered very well. They covered that good and bad aspect of Escobar, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But Laquica goes to him, introduces him to Lamon, lets Escobar know he can be trusted since they haven't had any run-ins with police. And Escobar asks where he's from, and Lamon says he and his mother lives in the barrio he built for them, and Escobar says he's glad, and then asks about the girl, and they explain who she is and how they know her, and Escobar asks if he knows what it means to work for him. Lamon says it's an honor, and considering all he's done for the poor people of Medellin, he says if he has to lose his life for him, he will, which shows Escobar that he can trust him, and just the fact that Lamon looked at him as this godlike figure and someone that he's willing to kill himself for, I mean, that just shows how powerful Escobar is. He is in a position where people would literally lose their lives for him. They would do whatever they can to provide for him, and it's almost like he's a member of their family, mainly because of everything that Escobar's done, but also this is kind of what Escobar's put himself in. Again, it really does remind us how powerful he is just from little scenes like that, and I really did like that. I thought that was interesting to see, and basically Escobar asks where he's from, and Limon says it's an honor considering all he's done for the poor people of Medellin. Says if he has to lose life for him, he will, which shows Escobar that he can trust him. Murphy then gives us another monologue. Murphy then gives us another monologue about La Catedral. The next step was Carlos Lugan, who was an old police academy that had been repurposed as Ground Zero in the search for Escobar, and the new honcho was Colonel Pinzon, who is famous for his love of Uncle Sam. Again, something we already knew, that we didn't need this narration. Again, it just... Here's the thing, I like the narration, but when you reiterate things I already know, it just feels completely pointless, and it really takes me out of the scene. So that was something that really did piss me off here. I really did not feel we needed this much narration. Now, granted, there wasn't as much as there was in Season 1, but I just felt that here, it just felt very unnecessary. I really did not feel that we needed here. So Pinzon tells Javier and Murphy that he will allow them to participate in the manhunt, but he sets the limits and all decisions rest with him. He said that they don't agree with these conditions and then talk to the president about it, and that's, don't blame him, go to Gaviria. And Javier then agrees, says he hopes they didn't get on the wrong foot. The colonel says they didn't at all. Every operation needs a high army. He takes them to their headquarters, which he hopes will be a good space to do their work, and they let him know it's better than good. They see a ton of files they can use for hints on where Escobar has fled. Murphy tells about Escobar's plan with the tax scene, that despite his absence, he still had a royal following in Medellin, and a network of spotters, kids mainly, who could let them know which streets to take and which to avoid. Again, that's something that we just didn't really need to know necessarily. I mean, yes, it's interesting to know, but I just didn't need this narration. Limon then takes him to an area that Maritza feels is unsafe, but Limon tells her to just go along with it. She gets down, Escobar gets out of the trunk and is set free. He meets with another cartel and meets with a man named Rojas, who he catches up with and asks him what's going on with the deposits since they're looking a little light. And Rojas says after everything that has happened with Galeano and Moncada, people are very nervous, especially Judy, and not everyone wants to pay, and Escobar asks if that's it. Rojas says it is. He told them to tell him, and Escobar tells him not to worry about it, says they'll fix the problem soon. He says in the meantime he wants to move the offices in Laurelez since it's no longer safe there. Rojas agrees. He then gives him a backpack, tells him to fill it up with money, which he does, and this whole just swarm of people go up to Escobar, and I love the scene where Maritza is literally just ducking for her life in this car. Like, she's doing whatever she can to protect herself. She's all covered up, but in that short moment, she see how famous and liked he is among everyone, because he ends up distributing the money to everyone. Now, and this scene I absolutely love, because it shows us that Escobar is a bad guy, but he's doing things for the right purpose. Remember, he's the one that is getting everyone out of this poor state. He wants to be the one to do some bad. That's why he became mayor. That's why he did all these things. Everything he's done has been for the poor people. And yes, it's kind of gone to his head a bit, but he still is very caring, and I thought that definitely was interesting to see. I really do love that scene overall. Very well done there, and really to show us that Escobar, deep down, did have good intentions, which I thought was interesting. So Rosa then makes a call to the agents, asks to talk to an American. Javier answers. Rosa says she knows where they can find one of Escobar's men. He asks which one, and basically exposes La Quiqua and says that they can find him there. She tells him exactly where he is, gives them the information they need. He hangs up the phone. Murphy asks if it's legit. Javier says they'll find out soon. Pinzon really doesn't know if this source is that credible, obviously, because it's just some random woman. They don't know who she is. Javier explains what Rosa said, says all they need is a few cars and some men. Pinzon says his men are busy there or outside in the street, and he's not relocating them for bullshit. And Murphy explains if it turns out to not be bullshit, La Quiqua could give them Escobar, and Pinzon tells him to go ahead since they don't need an excuse to go to the whorehouse. Javier says it would be worth investigating, and they're not asking for a lot. Pinzon agrees to 1 vehicle and 3 men, and I like they were able to convince him there. So Jamie's then on the phone with Berna, who asks him if he closed the lab. Jamie says he didn't because he didn't feel it was necessary. Berna says to listen to him. Jamie says the same, tells him enough is enough. He already spoke with Ricardo, and he's with them and supports them. So he feels they're in the clear. He feels that everything's fine here. And Berna says that he told them to be careful with these people. Jamie says to pay attention to him first. He said the guys have been with them since Escobar first killed Kiko, and Ricardo knows betraying Escobar means a bullet in the head, and they're sending them for security. Berna asks if he gave people the address to the lab. Jamie says that there's no other way to be able to get in there. Berna tells him to get out of there, get moving, come there right now. Jamie tells him to stop with the paranoia, but then the second he says that, a gunshot rings out. Many lab workers are killed. Berna tells him to get out now. The priest goes point the gun near Jamie. He asks Ricardo what's going on, tells him he fucked up, and tells him to put the gun now, and says Escobar is weak, and he knows that. He says Escobar can't move, but then realizes that Escobar is actually the source of this entire ambush, which... This scene was incredible. What I love is that it was directly after the scene where he's distributing money to everyone, because it shows the good and bad side of Escobar. It shows that there is an Escobar that distributes money to people, but if you wrong him and if you fuck things up, he will make sure that he gets his way with you. And he then calls Berna, who's thinking it's Jamie, picks up the phone. Escobar hands the phone to Jamie, who tells him to help him and explain everything, but Escobar shoots him before he can get a word in edgewise. Jamie's dead, and honestly, I don't blame, I honestly can understand why they had to kill off Jamie. Jamie really was a lost cause. He wasn't listening to Berna. I feel like if they would have kept him around, he would have been annoying, so I'm glad they killed him off. And I really do like this character of Berna, because Escobar then tells Berna he's next on the kill list, and then Judy. Berna tells him he's made the biggest mistake. Escobar says to tell the others he's to be respected. Judy tells Berna she wants everyone in his family dead. She cries. Berna goes to her, says he's very sorry about Jamie and all the deaths, but they have to face it. They've lost this time, and promises her he'll be with her till the end. And if she wants to go against Escobar, just say so, and they can find many allies. He's willing to do whatever he can to... take down Escobar, because no one seems like they can, and they want to do whatever they can to do so. She says she does, says they have to see things for what they are, and for the truth of what is, and tells him she knows of someone who's very powerful, and someone who wants to help them kill Escobar as much as she does, and we don't know who that's gonna be, who she's bringing in, who's gonna end up, having personal beef with Escobar. That's something I'm definitely looking forward to seeing, is who they're gonna end up getting. So the DEA agents plan to ambush La Kika, though they are unsure it's going to work. Murphy then gets a call from Connie, and this was really dumb, I have to say. I think this whole thing between Murphy and Connie, this whole thing was just here, really, I think, just to add drama. And he says he'll call her back right now. She says they're at the airport. She can't do this. She's taking Olivia, going back to Miami. He knows she can't do it like this. She says her sister has offered to help them out for a while. They'll be there if she needs him. And it's not right to keep Olivia there with everything that's going on. He assures that she's safe there in Bogota, right beside the embassy. She says she has to go. He tells her to not get on the plane. He'll be right there. And he's going to do whatever he can to run after her, because obviously he wants to make her stay. And Laquica then goes to the cab. He lets Escobar out, who again greets many men, and Laquica praises Maritza, gives her $3 because of her special talent. He asks what she's doing tonight, says he knows of a nice calm place where they could have fun, but she says she can't since she has to take care of her daughter, and we're reminded just how much of a bastard Laquica is when he immediately just turns her down and just goes for one of the whores instead, gets out, says he'll be back in 30 minutes, and, I mean, just such a savage move, really. He just left Lyman, Limon standing there. Like, Limon is just standing there knowing what to do. Maritza's gone God knows where. Maritza says he's a bastard. She gets out. Limon waits for them to return, and Murphy then runs up the stairs to get to Connie, but is then told the plane has already left. I'm not gonna lie, I thought this scene was kind of silly. This, to me, felt like every cliche romantic movie you've seen where the girl gets on the plane, the guy runs after her. This very much felt like that to me, but this isn't a romantic show. This is a crime drama, and for this to be in here, I just thought it was very silly, and he's told he can't be there. Javier and the other agents are in the car. He gives them directions for where to go. They can see he knows the town well, and Laquica's having sex with one of the whores while Limon waits outside. Murphy goes into a bathroom in the airport, and we get by far, I think, the best scene we have ever gotten with this character. Now, I will say, like I said, the whole thing with Connie, I thought was a little bit silly. The fact that Murphy, ran after her and she had left and everything, I thought that was really dumb. But what this leads us up to, I think, is by far showing how great of an actor Boyd Holbrook really is. Because he goes into a bathroom, he's in the airport, and he sees two men who has done literally just a shit ton of coke. You can tell. He tells him he wouldn't imagine what a kilo of that stuff cost. Tells him by the time it's distributed on the east side. Tells him it cost 6 lives and 6 people were murdered every time they do a line of coke. The man says he's sorry to hear that Murphy savagely beats both guys, breaks one of the guy's noses, I believe. He gets his frustrations out, and this is not just Murphy taking his anger on these two guys. This is him getting his anger out on Escobar, the man that he wants to do whatever he can to kill. This is someone that he hasn't been able to get, and this is his way of just taking his anger out on Escobar because he knows that Escobar is a part of this. But this is also his way of, getting his frustrations out with himself, because I think he's really pissed himself. I think he wishes that he would have left and that him and Connie could be done with this whole thing. But for whatever reason, he wants to continue to go after Escobar. He's now made this kind of like a personal mission for himself, and you definitely do see that here. So I do like where's his head. Again, I think it's a little bit silly that Connie left, but I think this scene was pretty well done. He's taken by 2 security guards, and basically Javier tells the driver to park on the left. Javier goes to the cab where Limon is thinking he'll find La Quica, and Limon then runs out. They get all the van, go after him. We get this pretty great chase scene. I've said it before that Narcos does some really great action stuff, and this scene was no exception. Limon goes to find La Quica, tells him to get out of there. They're going to a restaurant to look for La Quica. They end up losing him. Duque tells, and unfortunately they do end up losing him. So I don't know if they're going to get La Quica to talk. We'll have to see what happens, but they did not find him in this episode. But Duque then tells Escobar his escape has left them without any options, and Escobar says if he hadn't escaped, that they most certainly would have killed him, or he would have rotted in jail, and he is to Gaviria. And Duque says that he's being crucified by the media, and he doesn't feel it's a good time. Escobar says that he will tell him, and says he's willing to go back to La Catedral to finish his sentence. And Fernando says tomorrow morning he'll return to Bogota, which Escobar immediately shuts down. He says they can't leave for tomorrow when they can, what they can do today. Gaviria is then told that Duque is on the line, and he says he has nothing to say to him. And the vice president answers, says he has a message from Escobar that he's willing to negotiate the conditions for his return to La Catedral. And the vice president says to turn on the television, which they do. Gaviria then goes on and gives this press conference. And I don't know if this was a legit press conference, but this was a really well done scene. It says in the last year and a half, they've enjoyed the peace they've long awaited for over a decade. Now they can go to work, drop their children off at school without the threat of violence looming out around every corner. He says the peace is now threatened by Escobar, who has been named the bloodiest narco-terrorist of all time. He says the history changed today, but they all need to come together as a country so his reign of terror can come to an end. Says to his offering them a reward of 1.4 million, which, holy shit, that's a ton, for whoever gives information leading to his capture. Says it is his hope through the reward the day will finally come when the country is free of Escobar's grip and will cease to be held hostage by terror, intimidation, and murder. Says he wants to make it very clear that under any circumstances he will not negotiate with Escobar, and that is the way the episode ends. You can just see the look on Escobar, realizing that he's losing, realizing that his approach, he's going to have to do things differently, and that is the way the episode ends. Really love this episode overall. Let's just get into it. So overall, guys, there's really a lot of stuff to talk about here. Now, here's the thing. It is kind of hard to make predictions for this season based on the fact that we do know that Escobar is going to die. I mean, it says at the beginning of the season that this is it, that the clock is ticking, Escobar is going to die this season. We know that. But I do have some predictions on what's going to happen, because what's going to happen with, Escobar now. Now I think he's starting to realize that he is starting to get defeated. Not many people are fearing him. People are starting to realize that this is a human. This isn't a godlike figure. This is in fact a human, and they don't need to answer to him. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with that, and I like seeing this more vulnerable Escobar, because while Escobar is just as, savage, and I think just as menacing as he was, he is a little bit more vulnerable, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. Murphy, where is he going now? Connie is left. He's now on his own. What is he going to do for the rest of the season? I don't really know. We'll have to see. I really do want the narration to go. I think it's very unnecessary at this point. I think pretty much every single one of the narrated scenes we got, except for the first one, we really could just cut out this episode altogether. I really did not need them, and probably for the rest of the episodes, I will not mention the narration, because it just isn't really doing much for the show right now. Maybe it will in future episodes, but just this one in general, it just didn't really do much here. It told me things I already knew, and I didn't need it. As far as Limon, will Javier, will the agents, will they find La Quica, will they get him to talk? We'll have to see what happens with that. I think that's going to be very interesting. I really do love the storyline with Berna, and, I like, with the storyline with Berna, and, oh shit, I can't think of her name now. Sorry, I can't think of her name. What's her name? Judy, okay, Berna and Judy. I don't know why I forgot her name, but I was blanking on it. But Berna and Judy, I like where this is going. Are they going to be able to accumulate an army? You know, how many men do they need? I mean, you have to figure that there definitely are some people that are against Escobar. I mean, we've seen that there are definitely more people, you know, for him than there are against him. But I'm sure there are those people who he has around, and hopefully they are going to be able to create that army, because I am really rooting for these characters. I'm looking forward to seeing where that's going to go. I think that's going to be very interesting. Will Escobar get to them before? We'll have to see. I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with that. Rosa, I don't know what's going to happen with that. I think that's going to be interesting. As far as Maritza goes, I liked this whole thing with Maritza being the one to you know, be the one to hide in the trunk and everything. I thought that definitely was a very interesting story. And then as far as I think Escobar's men just go in general, and Escobar himself, I think he's really going to have to do a different approach. You know, he can't negotiate with people. So I'm guessing, one, he's going to go to straight of killing, or two, he's going to end up surrendering, which I don't think he's surrendering anytime soon. I know he probably will by the end of the season, but right now, obviously, he's not going to. We'll have to see what happens with that. Overall, guys, I really enjoyed this premiere. I thought that there are a lot of things they're getting better on, such as just the fact they showed a lot more of Escobar. Escobar felt like a character in the show. Also, Tata, what is going on with Tata? You can tell very clearly that Tata does not trust her husband. You can tell that she feels that he's just someone that she can't really be with right now, and I'm looking forward to seeing where that storyline is going to go. But I did like this episode focused more on character. It really did peel back a lot of the history book type stuff that I think the first season did way too much. But overall, guys, how much you guys saw this premiere? Love to hear your thoughts on it. Do you like where the season is headed? Please don't spoil what happens. I know, obviously, Escobar dies. But beyond that, don't tell me anything else except Escobar dies, because I know that he dies. I don't know who kills him specifically, but I know that he does die in episode 10. But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. And I will see you guys in my next one, which will be for the season of One Mississippi, because I'm almost done with it. I'm going to finish it right after I do this video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.